are these people?
Next thing is our Fuck Israel segment, because we have to do one every week. Thanks, Israel, for making us do a Fuck Israel segment. Stop murdering people, and we will stop doing a Fuck Israel segment. That's on you.
Nazis. I hate these guys.
Especially Illinois Nazis or Middle Eastern, European Nazis. All right.
Yep. They're the same ones, technically. They just found a different necklace to wear, I think.
So Mohammed Safa, who is a CEO, also somehow, what is PVA English? Main representative at the United Nations. All right. So, and at the UN Geneva office. Over 500 Palestinians in Gaza have been killed in the last 96 hours. July 1st through 4th. It's not war, it's genocide. It's systematic ethnic cleansing. It is an attempt to wipe out an entire population of people and to erase their history, to kill their lawmakers. Well, they don't even have lawmakers. To kill their doctors and their educators and their students and their nurses and everybody else in between. So that hasn't stopped. On top of that, an Israeli airstrike on July 2nd killed the Gaza hospital director along with his family. Now, again, remember that we've been talking. Now, this is from Dave DeCamp, antiwar.com, both Indie Media Award honorees, best of the best. Again, we only go to the best of the best here. Israeli attacks have killed 70 healthcare workers over the past 50 days. But they're not targeting healthcare systems, right? And remember that targeting healthcare systems and killing aid workers is a war crime every single time.
Yep.
They do it without shame and without any care. So what Dave writes is that on...
This is just... Go ahead.
No, I
was going to talk about Dr. Hassam as well, who's still... We have no idea at his, status. So... If
he's even alive, where he is. Right.
Right.
They pushed his trial, whatever that is, 6 further months just so they could torture and imprison him another 6 months.
Torture him more.
But Dave writes that on Wednesday, an Israeli airstrike struck an apartment in Gaza City, which killed Dr. Marwan al-Sultan, the director of the Indonesian hospital, as the Israeli military continues to kill medical workers and decimate Gaza's healthcare infrastructure by design. According to the Associated Press, so you know it was intentionally disseminated as propaganda, al-Sultan was killed alongside his wife, daughter, and son-in-law. Again, propaganda because the State Department or whoever wanted it pushed out there pushed it out through the Associated Press. That was done by intent. Other reports say his sister is also killed. According to Haaretz, the Indonesian hospital has been out of service since May 21st after an Israeli airstrike destroyed its generators. So, al-Sultan had been quoted by many media outlets warning of the catastrophic destruction of Gaza's medical infrastructure. That's apparently something that's worthy of a death sentence to the Israelis. According to Healthcare Workers Watch, a Palestinian medical organization, al-Sultan's killing marks again the 70th healthcare worker killed by the Israeli military in Gaza in the past 50 days. Name any other country that could intentionally murder 70 healthcare workers in 50 days and not be bombed to the Stone Age.
I know of one.
The killing of the killing of Dr. Marwan al-Sultan by the Israeli military is a catastrophic loss to Gaza and the entire medical community and will have a devastating impact on Gaza's healthcare system. That was, again, by design. Quote, this is part of a much longer and systematic, atrocious targeting of healthcare workers sanctioned by impunity. This is a tragic loss of life, but also an obliteration of their decades of life-saving medical expertise and care at a time when the situation facing Palestinian civilians is unfathomably catastrophic. Now you're taking away the people that could possibly fix the few that are left. The Guardian report said that among the healthcare workers killed over the past 50 days, there were 3 other doctors, the chief nurses at the Indonesian hospital, and Al Nasser Children's Hospital, because you don't want them fixing children, apparently, one of Gaza's most senior midwives, a senior radiology technician, and dozens of young medical graduates and trainee nurses, because why allow the next generation to actually take care of people? On June 6th, the first day of Eid, 9 healthcare workers were killed in one day in airstrikes in the north of Gaza, where they were sheltering with their families. I mean, The Hague, we've got to figure out a way to hold these people accountable. On May 25th, an airstrike on a home in Khan Yunis killed 9 out of 10 children, as we know, of doctors Ala al-Najjar and Hamdi al-Najjar. Allah was working as a pediatrician at the Nasser hospital when the strike hit her family, and Hamdi was injured in the attack, succumbing to his wounds a few days later. Allah and her only surviving child, 11-year-old Adam, who was badly maimed, have since been evacuated to Italy for medical treatment. Again, another doctor out of commission, which is exactly what Israel wants. All right. But that's not all, because this one was targeted, and here's why. Mossab Abu Toha, which interestingly had his Substack account suspended yesterday for a few hours. They put it back, thankfully. There's only one person I know of who's ever had their Substack account permanently suspended and disabled. They don't censor. He says, oh my goodness, how did I miss this until now? The timing of Israel's assassination of Dr. Marwan al-Sultan, the director of the Indonesian hospital and one of Gaza's top cardiologists, was no coincidence. It happened on the very same day Gaza Doctors Under Attack was scheduled to air on Channel 4 in Zateo.
Channel 4.
This is the same documentary that the BBC had commissioned and cleared for broadcast back in February, before abruptly pulling it on June 20th. I wonder why.
Why? Why?
Maybe
Even
Israel
we know
complained.
why, but why? Yeah, but like that's not enough.
Yes.
You're a fucking completely other country.
Dr. Al-Sultan's
What the fuck
daughter,
are you
Lubna,
doing?
said the missile struck the only room where her father was staying. It seems like this world still does not understand what Israel is capable of and what they are doing. Again, he's one of the doctors who was in this documentary. But he wasn't even the only doctor.
Could you imagine any other country? Could you imagine any other country being able to just call the BBC and be like, hey, can you pull that documentary about us down? Like, that would never happen.
No, didn't
they
ask.
did one on Russia.
Ordered them to. Ordered them to, as if they were the bosses, and they complied. This is a state-run media agency.
Every fucking time. They
got somebody by the short and curlies. They got to have film on everybody, and thanks to their spyware, they know everybody's private stuff.
Everything.
They can go after anybody. But he wasn't, again, the only doctor this week that they murdered. All right. Dr. Musa Kafaja, which is a doctor at Nasser Hospital, along with his entire family, including 3 children, when their tent was struck with a missile in southern Gaza. This is him delivering babies. He was one of the most preeminent prenatal doctors, not because he treated soldiers, but because he saved premature babies. Those barely alive and deemed too dangerous to live.
In incubators.
In the eyes of their enemy, his real enemy was the future, so the missile came to silence his heartbeat, to empty his crib, to stop the tiny threats from breathing. What kind of injustice is this? What kind of war sees incubators as a threat? It's not a war. It's a massacre. It's an extermination. And it's disgusting. And we're funding it and arming it.
I mean, I'm old enough to remember, people talking about incubators and babies on the Senate floor and getting us into a war that way.
Yes.
I vaguely remember that.
Correct. Suppressed News.
What happened? I thought we cared about babies.
Suppressed News shares this website. More than 13,000 videos documenting Israel's war crimes archived by type, date, location, weapons Israel used in the genocide, crimes of each military unit, and all details are available at tiktokgenocide.com. Website made by Zionism Observer. Receipts underscore LOL. We brought some of their stuff before. And these are just some of the categories.
Right now.
Right? Oh, well, you know who
Make
owns
sure
the
that's
Wayback
saved
Machine.
and archived.
Uh-huh. But yes.
So,
but on top of that, there was also like a database of files put out on top of that. Not just a website, but there's also a database where you can download them, and that's been disseminated. Now, the final thing I wanted to bring up was, remember we talked about Glastonbury a couple of weeks ago when David Miller published the dossiers of all of these fucking Zionists that petitioned Glastonbury to keep kneecap out. Well, so Glastonbury's been a story for a couple of weeks. I think a lot of you heard about what happened at the festival, that Bob Villain was on stage and they tried to, and he said something that got a lot of people very upset. All right.
Yeah.
He wished death on an army, which I guess you're not allowed to do. People are getting arrested for it. People are getting their Twitter accounts shut down for it. I'm guessing that if it was death to an army that the U.S. was not happy with, that they wouldn't be doing that. And not that the U.S. is happy with the IDF either, but they fund them, so therefore you're not allowed to criticize them, apparently, or to wish what they wished. So, Richard Medhurst, who Indie Media Award honoree, who is being silenced himself and is under investigation in 2 countries, allegedly. He says sniping kids in the head, gang raping prisoners. That video came out again, horrific this week. Bombing hospitals, bulldozing cemeteries. We've covered that. Abducting doctors. Again, Hussam Abu Safia. Release and free him right now. Killing journalists, which we've covered just about every week. Killing UN staff. Bombing Israeli hostages. Yes, they cared so much about freeing the hostages that they bombed them. Using prisoners as human shields. Mauling or raping people with dogs. And blowing up homes. But yeah, let's condemn and investigate some unsettling chants at a festival instead. I mean, context here. And, let's put things in perspective. It's wow. I mean, the fact that we even have to say this shit is beyond. Rat Angel, yes, Richie is incredible. Shout out to Richard. Richard is one of the people that I credit with helping me get to where I am, with his coverage back in 2020, 2021, 2022. I mean, he's still doing great work now, but those, especially the Assange trial woke me the hell up. And he woke me up as much on Palestine early on in 2020 as anyone. And then after he did that, seeing what they then did to Gaza, and they destroyed the AP building in 21, and they murdered Shireen, and that permanently sealed it for me. Okay, I get it. This is not, they're not good people and never will be. Sorry, they're just not. Abby Martin put out a thing today about how over 80% of Israelis are in favor of this genocide and of the ethnic cleansing of Gaza and want to even potentially live there themselves. So don't just blame Netanyahu. Don't blame the Knesset. Don't blame the government. This is the policy and the mindset of the majority of Israelis. And
blame it on a BB.
They can't just blame it on the BB. That's what they want to do. It's nice and easy for them to do. So fuck Israel for all of those things.
It's the Likud party and they own the Knesset. No, it's all of you fucks.
Yep. It sure is.
All of you.
All right. All right. So again, we're not getting refunded by YouTube for doing any of that or talking about Bob Villain and shout out to Bob Villain, by the way, for taking a chance by any chance. Yes, Harps over on Substack. What did he try to say is they're cunts. They're fucking cunts. Said Glastonbury. It's perfectly acceptable to say that. Even. But either way, but they are right cunts. They absolutely are. But if you are able to and of means, please support the media you want to see and support INN, support independent media. The ways to do that, we don't like the platforms really getting the money. We'd rather it come to us because they take a lot of fees. Cash App, $ Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network. IndieNewsNow.com is our website where you can donate direct. INN newsletter over at Substack.com, as well as IndieMediaToday.com, where again, we are live right now. Hello and shout out to everybody over on Substack. Good to see you and thank you for watching over there. So,
coming to a Substack newsletter near you.
Support independent media because we need it more than ever. I love you all and we'll see you soon.
See you in a bit, fam.
Mwah. Ciao, baby.
We got party.
Bye-bye. No! We just fucking lost the stream.
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days, and I still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to say. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe? Were you safe?
Who are these people?
I would like to get to a couple of things very quickly about Israel, Gaza. Fuck these motherfuckers. Shout out to Paula Iacella, another Indie Media Award honoree for activism. She has been publishing one of these every day on Facebook. Anti-War's been retweeting and resharing it. I have too. This one was today's, and she updates the day every day, and she puts a little note about what happened in the last day. But we're now at 133 days for Gaza without food, water, or medicine. The Israel aid plan, quote unquote, for Gaza is a key part of its strategy to corral Palestinians into concentration camps to kill or expel. This is the final stage of ethnic cleansing. The Gaza Health Foundation, quote unquote, aid sites are human slaughterhouses. The aid system is a tactic of Israel's genocide. The clock is ticking since March fucking 2nd. Disgraceful.
Yep.
Now, I am not normally a fan, and I would not normally bring an Abby Martin tweet, but she posted one that really got me today. And you can see it went freaking viral as hell. More Palestinians have now been massacred simply lining up for food than the total number of civilians killed on October 7th. So screech to me about October 7th again. Fucking cunts. Now, the third thing that I wanted to bring was a Guy Christensen piece about revoking citizenship for criticizing Israel. And that's U.S. citizenship. And this is serious as a heart attack. And you can see, he says, this is serious, guys. So let me play this because I do want to get to the next one very quickly.
If you criticize Israel and you're an American, you should know that our government is now looking to take away your citizenship. You heard me right. I'm not playing around. This is serious, and you need to know about this. On June 11th, the Department of Justice was empowered by the Trump regime to start a denaturalization push, which means taking away the citizenship status of naturalized citizens in this country. One of their stated goals was, quote, ending anti-Semitism. And while the memo the Department of Justice released on June 11th outlined a bunch of criteria of why somebody may lose their citizenship status, which include being deemed a national security threat, the Department of Justice left the door open and gave themselves what is essentially a blank check to go after any case that they deem should be denaturalized. Zionism is destroying our country, and with it goes our rights. This is exactly what has happened here, and it's the direct result of not stopping the Zionist lobby from buying our elections, and with it, most of our Congress members. We must all come together and resist the violation of our rights. We must stand up and oppose this genocidal regime and end it once and for all, because if we do not, they won't stop here, I promise. Suppressing and criminalizing critics of Israel will serve as a model for the Trump regime to protect itself against its critics and its dissidents in the future. I know no one wants to live in a world where criticizing Donald Trump loses their citizenship status and lands them in exile. So please share this message, encourage people to join together to take action, protest, and find ways to resist this regime. You can support my work in my bio. Thank you, and free Palestine.
The only thing that I will say is that lavalier mics, you could just clip it on yourself, Holmes. You don't need to literally hold the fucking thing to speak into it. I don't know why everybody does this, or you could just clip it to a Metro card like some other fucking douchebag does.
Yeah.
All right. Free Palestine. Better say free Palestine. Fuckers. All right. And, you know, this dovetails into a story about apparently Rosie O'Donnell. All right. Trump was talking shit this weekend about Rosie O'Donnell and how he wants to revoke her citizenship because she's so happy in Ireland. Like, this is dangerous illogical shit. And nobody, you know, like, I certainly don't see any Democrats really standing up for this because they're pro-Israel. So they don't seem to necessarily, I mean, they don't see that after he's done with them, he'll come after the people that tried to prosecute him? Really? No, I'm not bagging on this homie and his dude. I love Guy Christensen. I give him a lot of credit. Mac 9135 over on Twitch.
Fucking Mike.
No, dude, you can't. There's nothing that bothers me more than talking into that stupid little Mike.
Fucking fix your TikTok hair.
It looks like you just got out of the shower. All right, leave him alone. All right, well, so for all those things, fuck Israel and fuck the United States for doing this on behalf of Israel and for playing cuck to Bibi Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant and Smotrich and all these fucking clowns. All right. Israel Katz is another one. So, you know, there's plenty of monsters. They just they don't die, they multiply. They're like Day-Day's kids. Please, we're not going to get remonetized by YouTube. INN has not been monetized. By the way, we hit 2,500 free subscribers to YouTube, INN YouTube, youtube.com/IndieNewsNetwork. So go subscribe over there and share over there. Please do. Again, support the media you want to see. $sign Indie News Network over on Cash App. co-fi.com/IndieNewsNetwork. PayPal.me/IndieNewsNetwork. At IndieNewsNow.com. That's our self-hosted website. And then over at the Substacks at INNNewsletter.com, where P. Ryan became a new member this week. And at IndieMediaToday.com, where Natalie Williams re-upped for another year. Thank you so much for your annual membership. You can see Natalie is one of the highlighted folks who has been extra good to our network that we certainly want to give special thanks to, really. It means a ton. Support independent media because we need it more than ever. I love you, and see you soon, everyone.
See you in a bit, fam.
Mwah. Ciao, baby.
No! We just fucking lost the stream!
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days, and I still think you're right here awake. The cost of living
these people?
I got to quickly get through the Gordon Dimmock stuff and the UK stuff. It's crazy. So last week we said Gordon Dimmock was going to turn himself into police, and he did. So he tells this story about how on Monday, 15th of July, I walked into a police station and handed myself in. I did it calmly, peacefully, and with absolute clarity. I told them who I was. I told them I support Palestine action. I told them I've encouraged others to do the same. I handed them a printed declaration confirming all of it. And I made clear that I understood the legal risk, including the Terrorism Act's potential 14-year sentence for encouragement. And they took my ID, they took my declaration, they took my phone number, and then they let me go. No caution, no arrest, no interview under caution, nothing. At first glance, it might look like a small win, but thanks to Craig Murray, we know exactly why this happened. And again, I'm going to encourage everyone to go read the rest of this article. It's not that long. But again, 100% Gordon supports Palestine action. He opposes genocide, and no law, no police force, no delay tactic will ever convince him that doing so is wrong. This is what conscience looks like. This is what resistance looks like. You can't arrest what's everywhere, but if they try, you'll know it wasn't about terrorism. It was about fear. So
why did they hold off? What did Craig Murray say?
Craig Murray said,
in short,
the UK government is deliberately delaying arrests and stalling prosecutions so it can stand in court and pretend everything is fine, that no one's been harmed, that no chilling effect exists, that no journalists or priests or pensioners or protesters have been terrorized by this law. But I've got news for them. Silence isn't the absence of harm, it's the evidence of it.
Speaking of which, had the date up above that.
That was July 14th. That was
21st of July.
No, 14th.
For judicial review. 21st of
that's
July.
That's tomorrow.
Okay.
That will be tomorrow. So,
gotcha.
Also, so Gordon's an Indie Media Award honoree. Here's another one, Ricky and Council of State Media. Right? Democracies don't treat old ladies as terrorists for objecting to genocide. Says, not sure who needs to hear this, but the UK is not a democracy. Never was. It's always allowed us just enough freedom to give the illusion of democracy while depriving anyone who threatens power of their freedom. The UK is a fascist oligarchy with a pseudo-democratic veneer. The latest evidence comes from the police crackdown on a peaceful protest against the decision to proscribe Palestine action. Shortly before the protest, Ricky wrote a piece asking if they were allowed to object to the proscription, and now they have their answer. The answer is no. At least not if you're expressing support for Palestine action and your objection to the proscription. It's a bit silly, isn't it? Because it means you can only object to the proscription if you don't support Palestine action. And even then, I'm not clear the objection is legally permissible. Perhaps it would still count as terrorism. Who knows? So for legal reasons, Ricky has to clarify that he's not offering his own support for Palestine action here. He can't. The group no longer exists, so how can you support a group that doesn't exist? It's as absurd as expressing your support for the resistance in 1984. Yesterday, we saw outrageous scenes as peaceful protesters were manhandled by police. One was former government lawyer Tim Crossland, who politely explained the absurdity of the situation as police carried him away by his arms and legs. This is what happens in modern-day Britain if we're opposed to genocide. It's quite something, isn't it? He said, while suspended in the air. Those cops must be so proud. Others arrested were middle-aged and elderly women who could not possibly be seen as a threat, but were treated as terrorists for expressing an honestly held opinion in their attempt to stop a genocide. British police seem to think being on the right side of history involves dragging away an octogenarian priest and prosecuting her under the Terrorism Act. I don't care what the law says. If you think Reverend Sue Parfit is a terrorist, you're an idiot. Perhaps I committed a thought crime by saying that, though. Yeah, her. They arrested her and called her a terrorist.
Yep.
If you still don't understand how draconian this is, just know that when journalists and social media influencers have been arrested under the Terrorism Act for objecting to genocide, they've had their homes raided and torn apart like Asa Winstanley. They've been banned from using electronic devices, and even leaving the house, and the media hasn't even bothered reporting on it, like Sarah Wilkinson. They've just been memory holed while they await a trial that could be years away. It's unclear whether authorities will go this far with Sue Parfit, but they've done so with others, so why not? When the Terrorism Act was debated in Parliament in 1999, we were told it wouldn't be used in cases of direct action, and it wouldn't be used to suppress opinions the government disapproves of, but that is exactly what's happening here. And it's also being done on behalf of Israel, which is even more disgraceful. They're taking orders from another country. In this case, the opinion that's being suppressed is the belief that Palestine Action was doing the right thing. This is an opinion you're not allowed to hold or express in the UK, and again, for legal reasons, Ricky must say that he's not expressing that opinion here. He's simply pointing out the absurdities in suppressing opinions. The government could so easily just stop arming Israel and fulfill its legal obligations to prevent genocide. Instead, it's chosen to treat the most well-meaning, thoroughly decent, and utterly harmless human beings as terrorists for objecting to the government's inaction. That's for real. Palestine Action has been dissolved, meaning people are being arrested for supporting a group that doesn't even exist. It gets even more absurd when you understand it's not the tactics of Palestine Action that are legally defined as terrorism, it's the name. An individual who used the same tactics without any connection to the group wouldn't be charged with terrorism. They'd be charged with breaking an entry, trespass, vandalism, etc., and they could possibly be found not guilty, just like in one case when Keir Starmer was the defense lawyer. The proscription of Palestine Action is a tactic to get around the problem of activists being found not guilty on the basis that their actions were justified. It ensures that people must be found guilty because being part of the group or expressing support for the group is the crime. A name is terrorism. A name. This abusive law means we're treating people as terrorists for supporting groups that don't exist, that resorted to behavior that's not terrorism to stop a genocide that our government is illegally participating in.
Yep.
We're seeing the silencing of dissent by a weak government composed of war criminals who are afraid the law will catch up to them. The draconian measures are not being introduced because the establishment is winning, but because it's losing. When the establishment has control of the narrative, it will allow dissent. It will allow the illusion of freedom, but the moment it starts losing control of the narrative, those freedoms will be taken away. In other words, your freedoms are conditional on you letting the war criminals win. Does that sound like democracy to you? Fucking Ricky is so brilliant. Love that guy. Support independent media. Support Council of State Media. councilofstatemedia.uk. I also wanted to bring an article by the dissident, former INN co-founder, good buddy of mine. We're due to have another one-on-one, I'm guessing, in the next couple of weeks, hopefully. He wrote an article, and he's been cranking out 5 articles a week. All of his articles, by the way, get linked in INNnewsletter.com on a daily basis, or the next day. Sometimes he publishes it after I get the daily out. Britain's Zionist police state is out of control. In order to protect Israel and Zionism, the UK has lost its mind. And I'm just going to bring the first and the beginning and the end of this one. He says, the UK keeps sinking further and further into a full-blown autocracy in order to criminalize speech and activism critical of Israel. Recently, the British state officially proscribed the activist group Palestine Action as a terrorist org, making it illegal to express support for the group through chanting, wearing clothing, or displaying articles such as flags, signs, or logos. And now apparently a Palestinian flag represents Palestine Action, which doesn't exist as a group anymore. Since this law was passed, Over 70 activists have been arrested simply for holding signs stating, "I oppose genocide, I support Palestine action," including 4 Vikers, a lawyer, Vickers, a civil servant, a social worker, a mechanical engineer, the daughter of a Polish resistance fighter, and the veterans of the 1960s civil rights movement, including Eamon McCann, political activist, former politician and journalist, and Kate Nash, whose brother was killed on Bloody Sunday. It's a disgrace to all of these people. Now the UK state has gone even further and is accusing activists of supporting proscribed organizations simply for protesting the Israeli genocide in Gaza. So I'm going to go skip down to the bottom here because the last paragraph basically says it all. The UK's war on speech critical of Israel has continued and is even ramping up to new Orwellian lows. From threatening peaceful anti-genocide protesters to seizing journalist devices, it's clear the British state is fine with becoming a full-fledged autocracy in order to protect Israel. For no other reason than to protect Israel. So again, even though this is about the UK, fuck Israel. Because Israel is controlling the narrative, in this case too, in a third country. All right, but not just there. We've got another one. All right, but before we get to that, if you can and are able to, and means, please support the media you want to see. That's our wall of fame. That's everyone that's hooked up our network with a tip. Best ways to do that, Cash App, $, Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network, IndieNewsNow.com, and at the Substacks at INNnewsletter.com, again, where I linked that dissident article earlier in the week, and at IndieMediaToday.com, where we are live right now. Hi, everybody over on Substack. I love you all, and I thank you for being here. Y'all are the best. Support independent media because we need it more than ever, and we'll see you soon, fam.
We'll see you in a bit.
Party.
Mwah. Ciao, baby.
Bye, Felicia.
No! We just fucking lost the stream!
You can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen? 50,000 died, and now we know our mission. We form a militia, make Congress a prison.
Who are these people?
Alan McLeod, another Indie Media Award honoree for Mint Press News, another Indie Media Award honoree. Best of the best here, man. Go support these independent organizations. Alan's title, Rotten Apple. Dozens of former Israeli spies hired by the Silicon Valley giant. What do you mean? It's that Unit 8200 members. He says, Apple has made headlines in recent weeks for touting its commitment to privacy and human rights, rolling out tools to limit surveillance and spyware. But behind the corporate messaging lies a much darker reality. The company has quietly brought in dozens of veterans from Unit 8200, Israel's shadowy military intelligence unit known for blackmail, mass surveillance, and targeted killings. It's really weird that they're doing that in 2025 after Unit 8200 has been so instrumental in genocide. And yet they're bringing in the spies behind the genocide into Apple. Many of these hires took place as Israel escalated its war on Gaza and as CEO Tim Cook publicly expressed support for Israel while disciplining employees for pro-Palestinian expressions. You mean Tim Apple, according to Trump. Apple's deepening ties to Israel's most controversial intelligence raise uncomfortable questions not only about the company's political loyalties, but also about how it handles vast troves of personal user data. And how about these people getting access potentially to it and funneling it to Israel? There's no risk of that? A Mint Press News investigation has identified dozens of Unit 8200 operatives now working at Apple. The company's hiring spree coincides with growing scrutiny of its ties to the Israeli government, including its policy of matching employee donations to such groups as Friends of the IDF and the JNF, the Jewish National Fund, both of which play a role in the displacement of Palestinian people. Why are they doing this? The intense pro-Israel bias at the corporation has led many former and current employees to speak out. This investigation is part of a series examining the close collaboration between Unit 8200 and Western tech and media companies, all basically reported on by Allen. Previous investigations examined the links between Unit 8200 and social media giants like TikTok, which Reef and Jesse covered 2 years ago on INN News. Facebook, which I think we covered last year, and Google also. And also how former Unit 8200 spies are now responsible for writing much of America's news about Israel and Palestine and holding top jobs at outlets like CNN and Axios. I think we covered that one too. If not, Reef and Colin did.
Yeah.
So, Israel's international reputation has taken a severe hit amidst multiple spying scandals and ongoing attacks against its neighbors. During this same period, Apple has ramped up its recruitment of former Israeli intelligence personnel. It reminds me almost of how the U.S. went after the Nazi scientists after Nazi Germany. The Silicon Valley giant has hired dozens of former agents for the controversial Israeli intelligence outfit Unit 8200, raising questions about the corporation's political direction, to say the least. Nir Shkedi is among the most prominent examples. From 2008 to 2015, he served as a commander and chief of learning at Unit 8200, leading a team of approximately 120 operatives who developed new artificial intelligence tools to perform rapid data analysis. Unit 8200 is at the forefront of this technology and is known to have used AI to auto-generate kill lists of tens of thousands of Gazans, including children. These tools helped the IDF bypass what it called human targeting, or bottlenecks, and strike huge numbers of Palestinians. Shkedi has been a physical design engineer at Apple's Bay Area campus since 2022. So before October 7th. Again, remember, this didn't start October 7th. These guys were already in place. Right? He spent time at in Maynard, Massachusetts. Now he's in Sunnyvale, but he spent a lot of time in Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
I wonder if his visa is going to be invalidated like the other people who support Palestine.
Oh.
Noah Gur is another senior Unit 8200 figure turned Apple employee. From 2015 to 2020, Gur rose to become a project manager and head of cybersecurity and big data development team at Unit 8200, where she, in her own words, invented creative technological solutions for high priority intelligence goals and managed 2 strategically important cyber projects for the IDF. One of the most important cyber projects Unit 8200 has launched in recent times is the September pager attack on Lebanon, an act that injured thousands of civilians and was widely condemned as an act of international terrorism, including by former CIA Director Leon Panetta, who we think is a piece of shit. While Gur was not personally involved in that operation, Unit 8200 has spearheaded similarly nefarious actions for decades. In 2022, she was hired by Apple as a system-on-chip design engineer. And again, but she actually located in Israel. So she stayed in country because, of course, Apple has an office in Tel Aviv. And her only other experience, by the way, was with Unit 8200, as you can see. She has no other experience. They hired her right out of the IDF 8200 into Apple, and she has no other work experience.
Yep.
That's a problem. Eli Yavotitsky, go ahead.
Alan's talked about, like, pretty much the pipeline from intelligence right out of college, right, to, tech companies, like, essentially just revolving door for all the intelligence agencies,
Right.
So they end up at Facebook and Meta and, all these tech companies. So
Eli Yazovitsky, meanwhile, was directly recruited from Unit 8200. Looks like she was too. In 2015, he left a high-powered 9-year career as a manager in the military unit to join Apple, where he rose to become an engineering manager. He's now since moved on to tech giant Qualcomm. They also make a ton of fucking cell phone chips, by the way. And guess who buys them? Apple. Unit 8200 is Israel's most elite and most controversial military intelligence unit. It serves as the backbone of both Israel's burgeoning tech sector and its repressive surveillance apparatus. See Where's Daddy and Lavender. The unit has developed cutting-edge technology like facial recognition and voice-to-text software to surveil, repress, and target Palestinians. The vast amounts of data gathered on the Palestinian population, including their medical history, sex lives, and search histories, have been used for coercion and extortion. That's coming here, by the way. If a certain individual needed to travel across checkpoints for crucial medical treatment, permission could be suspended until they complied. Information about extramarital affairs or sexual orientation, especially homosexuality, is exploited as blackmail material. But tell me how much Israel loves the LGBTQ community, right? One former Unit 8200 agent recalled that he was instructed during his training to memorize different Arabic words for gay so he could listen out for them in intercepted conversations. Internationally, Unit 8200 may be best known for its former, quote-unquote, because you never really leave the IDF, agents who created the notorious Pegasus software used by repressive governments around the world to spy on tens of thousands of prominent figures, including royals, heads of state, activists, and journalists. Among them, of course...
Palantir coming up.
Maybe. But among them was Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi, who was assassinated by Saudi operatives in Turkey in 2018. There were also potential links to CIA with him, too, allegedly. While military service is mandatory for Jewish Israelis, you end up in Unit 8200 by accident. Described as Israel's Harvard, parents spend fortunes on STEM-based extracurricular lessons for their children in hopes that they'll be selected to join the IDF's most elite and selective unit. Those chosen are rewarded with lucrative careers in the tech industry upon completion of their service, like all the people we're talking about here. Given Unit 8200's documented history of violence, espionage, and surveillance, both domestically and internationally, it's worth asking whether tech giants should be hiring its alumni in such large numbers. Do you think there might be a problem there? Getty, Gore, and Yazovitsky are the most high-profile example, but they are far from alone. A closer look reveals that dozens of other Unit 8200 veterans have also secured key roles at Apple in engineering and hardware design. Again, 2022. It looks like they hired a bunch of people in 2022. And now they've been there 3 years throughout this genocide. You think they might have been suppressing the narrative a little bit in the hallways? Then you have in software and cybersecurity. This person was there since 2021. Okay, served as in 2020, between 2012 and 2016, and rose to a project manager during the assault on Gaza in 2016, hired in 2023. Guy Levy, another former intelligence analyst, now works as a software engineer. And we know what former intelligence analysts who moonlight as software engineers are actually doing. They're fucking spies. And then you've got the AI people, all right? Avital Kleinman, a 6-year veteran of Unit 8200, is now a machine learning algorithm engineer at Apple. You don't see any potential conflict of interest there, but you're expelling Chinese nationals? How? They have already been caught spying on us. Niv Lev Ari, currently a validation engineer, notes in his LinkedIn profile that he received a letter of commendation from Unit 8200 Commander Aviv Kochavi for his work in the unit. Then you've also got other technical roles. Okay, you've got an intelligence specialist, now in design verification engineering. You've got Gil Avniel, who spent over 5 years in the unit serving as a network engineer. The growing number of former Israeli intelligence operatives working at Apple doesn't seem to concern the company's senior management. CEO Tim Apple is known to strongly hold pro-Israel views and has spearheaded the Silicon Valley giant's collaboration with the Israeli state. Yes, I know I said Tim Apple. I was joking around because his name's Tim Cook, and Trump called him Tim Apple very famously in a meeting in 2017. Apple has acquired several Israeli tech firms and now operates 3 centers in the country, employing around 2,000 people. In 2014, Cook invited Israeli war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu to the company headquarters in Cupertino, where in front of the cameras, the two openly embraced. So when are we bringing up Tim Cook on the Hague charges for capitulating to all of Israel's demands on behest of a war criminal? The following year, Cook accepted an invitation from President Reuven Rivlin to visit Israel. So he made the trip, and I'm sure he made the pilgrimage, and he kissed the wall. It's a great privilege to host you and your team here, Rivlin said. Even for me, as one who prefers to write with a pen and paper, it's clear what a great miracle you've created when I looked at my staff and my grandchildren. He didn't create shit. Tim Cook didn't create shit. He was an executive. He's a manager.
Wait, why did he say his grandkids too? That's the other thing.
Right?
He's making family with these people.
Well, not just that, but he's talking about his grandkids all have iPhones and iPads and everything else. Effusive praise for the Apple CEO has also come in the form of honors from pro-Israel organizations. So they've been kissing his ass for years. In 2018, the ADL presented Cook with its inaugural Courage Against Hate Award in its Never Is Now Summit on Anti-Semitism and Hate, where the organization described him as a visionary leader in the business community. Fucking garbage. In the wake of the October 7th attacks, Cook sent out a company-wide email expressing his solidarity with Israel. Quote, like so many of you, I'm devastated by the horrific attacks in Israel. He wasn't devastated by them murdering 233 Palestinians in 230 days prior to October 7th. No, he didn't give a fuck. And the tragic reports coming out of the region. My heart goes out to the victims. You mean the ones that were murdered by the IDF? Those who've lost loved ones. And all the innocent people who are suffering as a result of this violence. Violence perpetrated by Israel. Violence ignored and allowed by Israel that monitored that every inch of that fucking wall, and somehow they had no idea what was happening for hours? Really? You're still gonna go for that? Oh, okay. Yet, according to Apple's For Ceasefire, which is a group of former and current employees opposing Israeli actions in Gaza, he has yet to say anything publicly about the mass devastation caused by the Israeli response to October 7th. How convenient. Indeed, the Silicon Valley Corporation has a policy of matching employee donations to groups such as Friends of the IDF, which raises money to buy equipment for IDF soldiers, and the JNF, an organization that participates in the theft and destruction of Palestinian land. Under Cook's leadership, Apple employees have been disciplined or even fired for wearing pins, bracelets, or keffiyehs in support of the Palestinian people. I wonder how many Palestinians work there. I'm guessing not many. Nevertheless, groups such as Apple's for Ceasefire continue to speak out about what they describe as Apple's complicity in genocide. All right. There's a whole other thing about the unit of 8200 tech takeover and how it's not just Apple. All right. Among them is Axios correspondent Barak Ravid. That's a propagandist whose Middle Eastern coverage won him the prestigious White House Press Correspondence Award. Until at least 2023, he was a member of Unit 8200. CNN also hired at least 2 former agents to produce their news coverage, right? And that's so that, again, it's not just Apple. It's unthinkable that former intelligence agents of Hezbollah or Iran's Ministry of Intelligence or Russia's FSB or GRU would be hired en masse and trusted with our most sensitive data. Yet when it comes to Israel, the answer is different. Many of these employees are not even former agents and are directly recruited from Unit 8200 while still in active service, despite Israeli law explicitly prohibiting the group's members from identifying themselves or divulging their alliances. Unreal.
Oopsies.
Thus, in this light, it appears that those like Apple's for Ceasefire, struggling to end the company's double standards, are fighting an uphill battle. Alan is as good as it gets. Again, go subscribe to Mint Press News, support Alan McLeod, follow him. He's everywhere. Telegram, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you name it. If you're able to, and it means support the media you want to see, thank you so much. These people already do. Cash App, $, Indie News Network. co-fi.com/Indie News Network. PayPal.me/Indie News Network. At IndieNewsNow.com, there's a section to keep the media free. You can donate there. Or you can go to INNnewsletter.com or IndieMediaToday.com. Subscribe on a monthly or on a annual basis as well. You can sign up for a year. I love you all, and I thank you for being here. Y'all are the best. Support independent media because we need it more than ever. And we'll see you soon, fam.
We'll see you in a bit.
Mwah. Ciao, baby.
Bye, Felicia.
No! We just fucking lost the stream!
You can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen? 50,000 died, and now we know our mission. We form a militia, make Congress a prison.
Who are these people?
Now, we're going to get to our big fuck Israel segment. Ben, everybody buckle up. This is going to be a little bit. This is from ifamericansknew.org. I don't know if you know this organization. Great website. They pull in, they're kind of like almost like an IndieNewsNow just for Israel-Palestine news. And
Gotcha.
If Americans Now wrote this article, Israel now targets anyone trying to rescue children buried under rubble. Yeah, this is unreal. Hala Arafat died in an unimaginable agony with her husband and 4 children. 14 members of their family, 7 of them children, were killed in the bombing of their home. This is the worst. Anyone who tried to approach them was attacked by drones. And this, again, came out of Haaretz. So this is an Israeli newspaper reporting on this. One eye is closed, the other open. One hand grips the wall that's fallen on her. She's trapped in the ruins, her head and body held tightly. She's been like that all night. A light bulb is thrown next to her and she tries to grab it. Maybe it'll save her. She loses her grip on that. And then she raises her hand, a sign that she's alive, and she fights to say the words, "Save me, I'm tired, I cannot." With her last strength, she says, "Please, please save me." And these are her last words.
Yeah, I did see this. It's fucking pretty brutal.
I can't. I mean,
Yeah.
You can see that there's a video
The picture's alone enough. You know?
It's not clear how long she lived after this picture. On July 15th, Nir Hassan wrote on X, "This woman is called Hala Arafat. She's 35. Since 2 a.m., she and 14 other members of her family, mostly children, have been beneath the rubble of their Zarqa Street house in the Al Tufa neighborhood." He spoke with the brother-in-law, who said that anyone who tried to approach her was attacked by drones. If anyone has an idea how to help, this is the time. The IDF spokesperson's office didn't bother to respond to Hassan for 12 hours. What's the hurry? Later, the spokesperson mumbled something about lack of coordinates. She died in unimaginable agony with her husband and 4 children. 14 members of their family, 7 children were killed in the bombing of their home. Why? Again, why? This isn't the only family that was slaughtered on Tuesday. The Azam family, Amir, Rateb, Karim, and 4 more babies were also destroyed. The images of the 4 infants' deaths lying on their backs in white shrouds with their faces exposed are among the most difficult. One of the infants' faces is cut. All right, so this is really, again, if Americans knew, they're talking about the Gaza Health Foundation. According to reports, the IDF shot anyone who approached. Daring women soldiers were at the joystick. Or were they soldiers playing their game of death against anyone who tried to attempt to rescue? These are the same IDF soldiers with whom Israel continues to embrace as if they're victims of this war and its heroes. Like the woman who was driving a bulldozer, was bulldozing a house and had the house fall on her bulldozer and died, and they wanted to eulogize her. She was bulldozing somebody's fucking house. They are neither victims nor heroes when they shoot with UAVs at the helpless. They're like shooters near the humanitarian aid hubs. Awful.
Who have been Americans, by the way. A lot of that. So...
This is the same IDF that's known for sending rescue teams to save civilians all over the world, whether they're in Japan or Thailand, Brazil or Turkey. The IDF no longer rescues anyone. Now it shoots anyone who tries to rescue a woman trapped between the walls of her home. Is there anything more monstrous than that? So that's this one. That's again Gideon Levy. Aritz. I got take something to drink here. We've also got this one, Mondo Weiss, again, Indie Media Award honoree, initial class 2022. Headlines are just fucking awful. Again, and nobody's doing anything to stop this. In the latest massacre, 15 Palestinians seeking food at the Gaza Health Foundation, which is a joke, a GHF site, die from suffocation after Israeli forces fired gas at aid seekers. Gas. They didn't fire guns. They fired gas. 15 suffocated to death. This wasn't aid distribution. Who witnessed this? It was a real massacre committed against the hungry who came hoping to get some food. At Nasser Hospital.
And people are literally starving in line at these. It's fucking awful.
Yep. At Nasser
on top
Hospital,
of the red light, green light stuff.
In Khan Yunis,
Oh,
young men carried bodies, and hungry children cried out in front of corpses wrapped in white shrouds laying on the ground, bidding them farewell for the last time. All these victims fell at a Gaza Humanitarian Foundation Center, which claims to distribute aid to the hungry. Quote, we received a call that there were a large number of martyrs and injuries at the aid distribution center in Rafah, explained Ezzeddin Abu Subha, a civil defense paramedic who headed to the incident scene in Rafah in the morning. He continued that when our teams arrived at the location, more than 20 martyrs and dozens of injuries were recorded by civil defense and Red Crescent teams there. But unlike any previous aid massacres where Palestinian aid seekers have been shot by bullets, the Palestinians killed today faced a new threat: poisonous gas. Abu Suba explained that all the cases were lifted into ambulances were proven to be eyewitnesses to cases of suffocation from poisonous gases, as their bodies were free from wounds or blood. He said that the apparent cause of death were a combination of toxic fumes and trampling in the stampedes that followed in the chaos. Still, he couldn't determine the cause of death officially and was waiting for the official report from the Ministry of Health to announce the exact causes. And we know that they don't really have the equipment or the supplies to really properly test anything at this point.
Anything.
That confirmation arrived hours
Can
later.
you imagine getting a toxicology report? Would be nuts.
The Ministry of Health issued a statement saying that 21 citizens had been martyred, including 15 who died by suffocation due to gas being fired at the crowds and the stampede that followed at the American-run aid distribution center. Again, American-run aid distribution center by private mercenaries. We reported that it was going to happen and that it was happening, and now they're murdering everyone there. Yeah, look at this. It's the first time that
I know
suffocation...
some of you are nurses and doctors in the chat. Does that look like a normal facility in any capacity? Like, no. You know?
It's the first time that suffocation and stampede deaths were recorded at these aid distribution centers, quote unquote, even though they really don't distribute aid. They are meant to gather everybody together so they can murder more people.
Yeah.
The ministry also said in its statement that the Israeli occupation and the American organization are deliberately committing systematic massacres against the starving. Yep. In a testimony collected by Mondoweiss from one of the survivors at the scene, Ahmed Abu Amra recounted, quote, at 4 a.m., people gathered at the entrances of the GHF centers waiting for food distribution. The numbers were huge. At that time, armed American company employees who stood not far from the civilians used loudspeakers to order people to retreat and not enter the site. He continued that when the people arrived, and with the repeated calls by the American company employees not to cross the fence, everyone stood still, crowded together due to the large numbers. At around 6 a.m., remember, they've been standing there 2 fucking hours, the Israeli army started shooting at the gathered people. He adds that at the same time, while the Israeli army was firing bullets at the people, the American company employees were launching stun grenades directly at the individuals, hitting them in the head, causing many injuries. Then
we know where they learned that from.
Yep. Then the gas bombs began falling amid the crowd, leading to panic and a stampede. People were running in a terrified scene, and anyone who fell to the ground could not stand up as others trampled over them. Abu Amr lost his cousin today in the chaos at the, I don't even want to call it the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation site. That's fucking disgraceful. This wasn't aid distribution. It was a massacre, a real massacre committed against the hungry who came hoping to get some food. He added that even the American company employees were firing stun guns at our heads. Again, confirmation by multiple people. They launched more than 16 stun grenades directly at the people. I saw them with my own eyes. I was injured by shrapnel from one that exploded near sand and gravel, and the stones flew toward the people. I was hit in the head, but it wasn't serious, but others were directly hit in the head by the grenades. Some lost their eyes. Some had their mouths injured and noses broken. Because we know that there's adequate hospital supplies to patch them back up, right? Abu Amr explains why he and others continue to go to these locations despite the risks. He says, I'm a living example. For 4 days, my 3 children, my wife and I have not eaten anything. 4 days without food. That's why we go for any option that gives us even the small chance of getting food. It's literally fucking Squid Game, the Hunger Games. Red light, green light.
And keep in mind, there's fucking aid miles away, literally being destroyed as we speak by Israelis who feel like they have every right to do that
And blocking the trucks from
Fucking-
coming in. Months worth of aid.
Atrocious.
Abu Amr
Literally
explains,
there waiting.
all right, the only solution and alternative to this tragedy and these daily massacres is for all of us, the residents of Gaza, to agree not to go to these sites, but we must insist that aid comes to the doorstep of our tents. We've been displaced, our homes destroyed, and our children killed. And now to get food, we have to face death daily. This is unbearable. We deserve to eat and drink. My children don't deserve to sleep without food for 4 fucking days.
Could you imagine?
No,
I mean,
I can't, because my kids can't go 1 hour without fucking eating. So, and I can't even imagine what the pain of a parent to know that you can't do anything for a child that's crying out for help. The helplessness of that as a parent. Fuck these motherfuckers. But it doesn't stop there. Let's go to another Indie Media Award honoree, Dave DeCamp at antiwar.com. This was the next fucking day. Israeli forces kill 93 Palestinians in Gaza over 24 hours. 93 killed, 367 wounded as a result of Israel's genocidal war over the past 24 hours as relentless U.S.-backed Israeli strikes continue. I love that Dave doesn't pull punches there. The health ministry said that another body was recovered from the rubble. A number of victims are still under the rubble and on the streets, where ambulance and civil defense crews are unable to reach them at this time because they keep getting attacked. The ministry recorded a total of 26 aid-related deaths and 32 injuries. The latest violence brings the total number of aid seekers killed since the U.S. and Israeli-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation began operating at the end of May to 877, and the number of wounded to 5,666. The UN's been reporting a slightly higher aid death toll than the health ministry, but 800. Where else would 877 people be allowed to be murdered lining up for food and not have the U.S. military going in to make sure that they got that fucking food? Al Jazeera reported that 8 Palestinians tasked with protecting aid trucks were killed by a drone strike on a convoy of aid trucks that were headed to northern Gaza. Of course, because if you're not in one of the concentration camps, they automatically assume that you're Hamas and you're targeted and murdered. Body parts were scattered, and civil defense members had to collect the body parts. Israeli strikes on Thursday included the tank shelling of the Holy Family Catholic Church in Gaza City, Gaza's sole Catholic church, which killed at least 3 people and wounded several others. Other Israeli attacks on Gaza City killed at least 20 Palestinians. The official death count, according to the health ministry, is now 58,667 since October 7th, 2023. And the number of wounded to another 139,000, almost 140. Studies have found that the ministry's numbers are a significant undercount. It's probably 300,000 or 400,000, if not more, and estimates that factor in indirect deaths caused by the Israeli siege and destruction of all Gaza's civilian infrastructure bring the death toll into the hundreds of thousands. Easily. You're going to have millions killed in the end.
I don't know if you brought Eva's thing on the... I think the same health ministry said that 85% of the population of Gaza is like
stage 5
malnutrition.
I didn't put that out. A bunch of other people did. I have other ones.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, it's literally, that's the point of no return. There's not much coming back from that, even when you get food later.
That's what they said. Yeah, even like, food doesn't help. That these people are literally going to have organ failures and like the worst.
Yeah, you're gonna have to IV and it's gonna be a mess. So 85%.
But remember that there's a lot more than just Gaza happening, because Israel is also attacking Syria. They're attacking Lebanon. They're attacking the West Bank. So latest South Syria ceasefire crumbles on July 18th, the day after the 93 were killed, At least 638 killed. They're just fucking murdering everybody, Israel. Bedouins and Druze trade claims of massacres as Israel allows Syria to send troops temporarily. Israel allowed Syria to send troops into southern Syria in order to kill 638 people. Fighting between the Druze and Bedouins in Syria's Sudwaya governorate continues to rage despite the second ceasefire of the week being declared on Wednesday. The toll in the fighting and killing since Sunday is now up to at least 638, according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. The fighting started Sunday in the Bedouin neighborhood of Makus, with both sides claiming tit-for-tat kidnappings, eventually leading Druze forces into the area, and the locals called nearby Bedouin tribes. That escalated quickly across the governorate, and now both sides are trading blame for respective massacres in the area, and given the enormous death toll, it's not unlikely that both are accurate. The Bedouins are backed by the Syrian government forces. They were accused to executing Druze several times in the area, while Syrian state media is reporting a large massacre in a hospital by forces loyal to a Druze cleric. The death tolls overall split among hundreds of civilians, hundreds of combatants, and even hundreds of Syrian Defense Ministry forces that got attacked by Israel when trying to enter the region in defiance of Israel's ban on Syria deploying troops to southern Syria. Wait, I'm going to repeat that part of the line because that is just remarkable. Israel is banning Syria deploying troops to southern Syria. Yes, I said that correctly.
Yeah, this has been Israel and the Jilani forces attacking the Druze. You know, it's rough over there right now, especially in Zawaida. You know,
Israel reiterated on Thursday. Israel reiterated on Thursday that the ban remained in place, and Prime Minister Netanyahu bragged that the Wednesday ceasefire was only achieved because of Israeli force. Yeah, from a war criminal, of course. I'm going to believe what they say. Now that the ceasefire seems to be failing, which was the plan the whole time, Israel announced on Friday that it's allowing Syrian troops to go back into the area for 48 hours to try to tamp down the violence. And then what? They're going to start attacking the Syrian troops that were there when you allowed them to be there in the first place because they didn't get out in 48 hours? Syrian troops are said to be redeployed. Whether that's going to actually slow the violence remains to be seen, as the Syrian troops are accused of participating in the summary executions and other violence against the Druze. Fighting and going on outside of the city of Sudwaya in nearby villages with more and more forces massing on each side. It's bad. The Bedouins are reportedly preparing a counterattack against Sudwada itself after seizing several towns and villages on the outskirts. So now you've got balkanization happening within Syria, which was the goal the entire time. So now the Bedouins are claiming some area, the Druze are claiming some area, the Jilani, the Al-Qaeda forces, what HTS are claiming an area, and now you've got smaller regional sects. That's what they want because nobody can then come to a consensus for the country. The death toll is also likely even higher than is being reported by the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. One hospital in Sudwada alone claims to have received more than 400 bodies since Monday. The actual toll may not be ultimately known for some time, but one thing is clear, it continues to rise, and this situation is far from resolved. Again, antiwar.com, Indie Media Award honoree. This was Jason Ditz, DITZ. Fuck Israel for that. But we're not done yet. Now, you mentioned Eva Bartlett. I did want to bring an Eva Bartlett story, but it was about a doctor that we have literally been talking about since December when he was abducted.
Yeah.
And Eva has been on this story since day one. I believe she personally knows Dr. Sophia. Israeli army abducted Palestinian doctor Hussam Abu Safia finally gets a mention in legacy media. And she says NBC issued a not terrible but not great article on the heroic doctor from Gaza. However, they stopped short of detailing his torture, nor the Israeli torture, rape, and murder of 3 doctors from Gaza prior. Of course, they would omit that. Free Dr. Hussam Abu Safia now. All right. She says if you search for reports on the abduction and torture of Dr. Hussam Abu Safia, they are scant in legacy media, and if mentioned, usually unquestioningly parrot the Israeli lies about his ties to or working for Hamas. Thus, I was surprised this morning to come across the NBC article, not the best by far, but with some truths. More below. For background on the Israeli army's abduction and subsequent torture of Gaza's doctor, see her previous, and here it is. From January, I believe we covered this from RT. So she says, Dr. Hussam Abu Safia is not okay, from his lawyer. My last visit to him was on July 9th, 2025. He's lost over 40 kilograms, more than a third of his body weight. At the time of his arrest, he weighed 100 kilograms. Today, he weighs no more than 60 kilograms.
So do the math, everybody. That's what, 4 months, 5 months? You're dropping 40 kilos.
7 months.
You know? Yeah. At that weight, at 100 kg, that's pretty fucking rough.
On June 24th, he was severely beaten. His room was specifically raided. He was brutally assaulted in the chest area and sustained severe bruises to his face, head, back, and neck. The beating lasted approximately 30 minutes. This is a doctor. He requested medical care, proper testing, and to be examined by a cardiologist, but his request was denied.
Of course it was.
He suffers from irregular heartbeat. His eyeglasses, which had recently been sent to him through his lawyer, were broken. He's still wearing winter clothes while enduring starvation, torture, solitary confinement, and total deprivation, buried underground with no exposure to sunlight. Then she puts some of the June 30th NBC excerpts, quote, before his detention, Abu Safia, 51, by the way, I'm also 51, who became the head of Kamal Adwan in 2024, probably because they murdered the head of the hospital previously, was the lead physician in Gaza for Med Global, a Chicago-based nonprofit that has partnered with local healthcare workers since 2018 and arranges volunteer missions to the enclave. The organization's co-founder, Dr. John Kaler, told NBC News in a phone interview Thursday that he was very afraid that Abu Safia won't make it out alive from detention. He added that the physician was a friend of mine, a hero, a mentor, who, among other things, helped to establish nutrition stabilization centers in the Gaza Strip. On his visits to Gaza, Kaler said he had never seen any indication that Abu Safia was linked with Hamas militant group or any suggestion that it was operating inside the Kamal Adwan hospital. Of course not. 5 other members of Med Global's team have also been detained. And on Monday, the organization called for the release of scores of health workers detained by Israel, including Abu Safia, which we know they won't do. Their targeting and attacks on the healthcare system is the point. Israeli authorities have repeatedly and blatantly violated international humanitarian law in repeated detentions of and attacks on healthcare workers, it said in a joint letter published on Monday alongside several other organizations. According to Al-Mizan Center for Human Rights, an NGO that advocates for the people of Gaza and that has been providing legal support to Abu Safia, no formal charges have been made against the hospital director as of Thursday. They're just holding him without charge indefinitely. Asked for an update on his case on Friday, the Israeli military did not immediately respond. What a shock. But a spokesman for the Al-Mizan Center for Human Rights said Thursday that he was still being detained in Ofer prison in the occupied West Bank, where he faced dire conditions, inadequate food, and overcrowded cells. And torture. At least at least 3 Palestinian doctors abducted from Gaza have died in Israeli prisons since October 2023. In September of 2024, UN Special Rapporteur on the Right to Health stated that Dr. Ziad Eldalu is the 3rd doctor confirmed to have died while being detained by Israel. Dr. Adnan Al-Bursh, head of the orthopedics department at Al-Shifa Hospital, was, quote, killed under torture at Ofer Detention Center on April 19th of last year. Dr. Adnan Al-Bursh was likely raped to death, wrote UN Special Rapporteur of the occupied Palestinian territories, Francesca Albanese, who deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. Dr. Ilyad al-Rantisi was killed due to torture at an Israeli Shin Bet interrogation center in Ashkelon 1 week after his detention in November of 2023. Israeli authorities concealed his death for more than 7 months. Why? They're not going to face any repercussions for it anyway. Why not just announce it? The torture of Palestinians in Israeli prisons has been widely reported. Methods include electric shocks to the genitals, stress positions, psychological torture, near starvation, and rape, resulting in serious internal damage, sometimes leading to death. Collar said his colleague was a heroic physician whose moral compass is directly pointing due north. Thousands of Palestinians are held by Israel under a practice known as administrative detention, which Israeli authorities use to hold people without trial or other usual legal proceedings, often based on alleged secret intelligence and evidence that they don't share with detainees, their families, or legal representatives. Gestapo
Often
shit.
made by AI.
It's Gestapo level stuff. We decided it's so, and we're not going to show you the evidence that shows you so. The practice has been roundly criticized by human rights groups, saying it's used to hold Palestinians indefinitely without charge or due process, while Israel has defended the practice as necessary security measure. In their letter on Monday, Med Global and other organizations said that as of February 2025, at least 185 healthcare workers from Gaza and the West Bank remained in Israeli custody. Their conditions were unknown, it added, let alone the scores that have been murdered by Israel. Many of these released have reported severe abuse, while some died in custody also. She says that the Israeli use
I read somewhere
Go ahead.
that Israel is essentially killing the witnesses to their crimes here. That the medical staff would be the ones to be able to accurately depict the actual horrors on a medical level. That this is what's happening. They're torturing them so that they don't say anything. They're, literally holding them hostage.
So they can't clinically describe what's happening from a medical perspective. Wow.
Yeah.
She says the Israeli use of administrative detention to indefinitely imprison and torture Palestinians, including women and children, isn't controversial. It's outrageous and illegal. If it were one of the U.S. enemy states doing this to just one civilian, legacy media would report on it endlessly, create PR campaigns about it, and definitely not use the term controversial to describe this barbaric practice. And she wrote about this in April of 2024 and more recently. She did one that his wife, Lena, apparently did a recent interview in which she said that he could have joined me in Kazakhstan, but he told me he couldn't abandon his patients or his colleagues. He believed leaving would be a betrayal of his duty. I don't know anything, where he is, if he's alive, if he's okay. I follow the news every day, terrified by what I hear about the conditions of detainees in Israeli prisons. All of these will be linked in the description afterwards at the Substack, because there's just too many to put in the YouTube description. But we're not done there, folks. All right. Again, this is the tweet about his torture
lawyer
from his lawyer, right? And that was one of the last photos we had. That was him getting into the tank, and that was the last photo we had of him being taken in his winter clothes. Now, after hearing all of that, I'm going to play a Caitlin Johnstone couple of minutes because it makes a lot more sense now in context. Caitlin wrote that if you're still supporting Israel in 2025, there's something wrong with you as a person. I'm going to play this narrated by her husband, Tim.
If you're still supporting Israel in 2025, there's something wrong with you as a person. Sometimes I think it's astonishing how aggressively Israel's supporters work to stomp out criticism of Israel. Then I remember that these people also support mass murdering children. Trying to take away my speech rights is one of their less evil goals. It shouldn't shock me. I saw someone talking online about how crazy it is that music groups who speak out against Israel's atrocities are starting to form alliances with each other in an effort to counteract the campaign to silence them and destroy their careers, saying it shouldn't be necessary to form an alliance in order to oppose an ongoing genocide. And that's true, it shouldn't be necessary. But it also shouldn't surprise us that people who think bombing hospitals is fine would try to cancel musicians for criticizing Israel. One mistake Westerners keep making is thinking of Israel's supporters as normal people with normal moral standards, just because we happen to know them and interact with them in our communities. They look like us, speak like us, dress like us, and act like us, so we assume they must think and feel a lot like us as well. But they don't. If you're still supporting Israel in the year 2025, there's something seriously wrong with you as a person. You do not have a normal, healthy sense of empathy and morality. It's 2025. Israeli soldiers are telling the press that they're being ordered to massacre starving civilians trying to obtain food from aid centers. Countless doctors have been telling the world that Israeli snipers are routinely, deliberately shooting children in the head and chest throughout the Gaza Strip. Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and all the leading genocide experts and human rights authorities are saying that a genocide is being perpetrated in Gaza. The New York fucking Times just published an op-ed by a Zionist genocide scholar who's finally admitting that it's a genocide. There is no way to deny what this is anymore. If you still support Israel in the year 2025, it's not because you don't believe Israel is committing horrific atrocities. It's because you believe those horrific atrocities are good and you want to see more of them. Most Israel supporters will deny that this is the case, because they lie. They lie constantly. They have no moral problem with lying. They have no moral problem with burning children alive, so of course they have no problem with lying. That's where people go wrong. They assume Israel supporters can't possibly be lying about their concerns about anti-Semitism in order to promote the information interests of Israel, because nobody could be that evil. But Israel supporters think it's fine to intentionally starve babies by blockading baby formula from entering Gaza. Of course they are that evil. People assume Israel's supporters wouldn't deliberately stage fake anti-Semitic incidents or artificially inflate anti-Semitism figures in their own countries so that their governments will implement authoritarian measures to stomp out criticism of Israel in the name of fighting anti-Semitism, because they assume nobody could be that depraved. But these people think it's fine for the IDF to systematically assassinate Palestinian journalists to stop them from telling the truth. Of course they are that depraved. Of course they'd try to silence our speech. Of course they'd try to send our kids off to war with Iran. Of course they'd work to manipulate our government. Of course they'd pollute the information ecosystem with mountains of lies. They'd support a live-streamed genocide. They're bad people. Supporting Israel and its actions is not some political opinion like your position on property taxes or marijuana legalization. It's not just some people having a point of view we need to respect and treat as equal to our own view on the matter. They are working to make it possible to conduct an extermination campaign of unfathomable horror. That's as political as a gang rape, and just as worthy of respect. There's not really anything you can put past Israel's supporters at this point. They will lie. They will manipulate. They will pretend to believe things they do not believe. They will pretend to feel things they do not feel. And they will do these things to facilitate some of the worst atrocities you can possibly imagine. This is who Israel's supporters are. They're showing you who they are every single day.
Oh, fuck yeah, dude. Indie Media Award honoree Caitlin Johnstone. Also, you totally user-funded. She takes no sponsorships. She takes no anything other than what people give her for her work. Amazing. Love her. Caitlin John ST.ONE. So you just spell it all out, Caitlin Johnstone, and put a dot before the last three letters. That's how you get to her URL. Man, and I still got more. I got one more. And this is from B'nai Blend over at the Palestine Chronicle, which is Ramsey Baroud's outlet. All right?
Yep.
And this is important because I thought that, you know, they always try to hedge and go to the mainstream media and ask them to cover how come you're not covering it? Well, this is on the need to go beyond asking them to cover to cover Palestinian stories, okay? So, on July 11th, illegal Israeli Jewish settlers murdered 2 Palestinians in the town of Shinjil, north of Ramallah, in the occupied West Bank. 23-year-old Muhammad Shalabi and U.S. citizen Saif Eden Muslat are the latest victims of the Zionist plan to ethnically cleanse all Palestinians from their homeland. Not just Gaza. Remember, people from the West Bank didn't attack anything on October 7th. They had nothing to do with this, and yet they're also being systematically exterminated and displaced. Amid escalating settler attacks across the region. Okay. No, it's just fucking Israelis just attacking the people who live there. Muslat's death drew particular attention, but perhaps because of his U.S. citizenship, as well as his particularly violent death. Murdered while visiting relatives on his family's farm, his relatives attest that settlers beat Muslat, then prevented ambulances from reaching him for several hours. Remember we read the thing about how the drones were preventing people from getting to a woman who was buried under buildings? This tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Zionists also fatally shot his friend, leaving him to bleed out, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry. Settlers are often depicted as armed and dangerous while somehow being separate from government. In fact, these attacks are occurring under full military protection with political approval from the Zionist regime. Shortly after the news broke of the tragedy, activist circles took to social media and beyond to lament that that most mainstream media had ignored this tragedy, while at best only giving it a few lines. Actually, New York Times reporters Aaron Boxerman reported from Jerusalem and Fatima Abdul Karim from Ramallah did cover the incident, but unfortunately with the usual slant notable in such articles by the Times. You know, he happened to have died, not that he was brutally beaten by Israelis. The very title reeks of so-called two-sidesism, meaning that reporters treated violence committed by both sides as somehow equally violent and regrettable. Seemingly a reversal of Trump's infamous defense of white nationalists during their participation in a 2017 rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, not North Carolina. Very fine people on both sides, he said. The Times referred to rock throwing on part of the Palestinians against the armed settlers with lethal weapons as a clash. Perhaps this bias happens because very often Western media rely mostly on Israeli sources, thus refusing to seek out other witnesses for their story. Hence, the coverage comes out this way. Mohammed Shalabi, 23, was shot and killed during the clashes, according to Palestinian health officials. It was not immediately clear who shot him. Both armed settlers and Israeli forces were on the scene. In the case of Al Jazeera journalist Shireen Abu Akleh, who was shot in the back of the head by an Israeli soldier, Israel at first, remember, denied knowing the cause of her death, then claimed it wasn't intentional on part of the shooter. That was one of the incidents that radicalized me permanently against Israel, honestly. The way that they treated her and then treated her funeral was one of the most disgraceful things I've ever seen in my life. The Israeli military said in a statement that the violence began on Friday when Palestinians hurled stones at Israeli civilians, lightly injuring 2 of them. The Times article continues. Violence has soared in the West Bank since the start of the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza. You mean almost 2 years ago? Israel has increased the violence because Palestinians have not ramped up their attacks on Israelis in that time, because that would give the Israelis an excuse to destroy the entire area. Thus, there is no context given for Palestinian resistance, in this case, in the form of stone throwing, no mention of the Nakba of 1948, when Israeli violence towards the indigenous population actually began. And even before 1948, when the terrorism had started happening in other Arab nations of Jews to force them and lead them to believe, brainwash them into believing that the only safe place for them to be would be in Palestine, aka Israel. There's the same lack of framework pertaining to the entity's genocide in Gaza, a siege, not a war, on the total population, not just Hamas, all done in the hopes of displacing inhabitants of the entire strip, which they're doing. Although there's some testimony given by Palestinian witnesses later in the article, it focuses solely on extremist Israeli settlers who were assumed to be acting on their own. As Aaron Turgeman wrote in 2015, again, remember, this did not start October 7th, the game of blame the hand, which is the settlers, has been played since the days of early militant Zionism. A move which allows the entity to carry on its colonization project with impunity, but in reality, it's the case that the hand does not operate by itself. It's the head that moves the hand. And the head is the Israeli government, representing Israel's Jewish population. You know, that reminds me, and I recall back to when we watched Issa Amro. He has the video of the settlers attacking his place and threatening to set fire to his trees and throwing rocks at his house. And okay. And again, that's blame the settlers. No, there were IDF soldiers standing between the settlers and Issa. He couldn't respond or he'd be killed by the IDF. That's hand with the head approving. Recalling an earlier incident, the Times article concludes with a recap of another Palestinian-American boy who was murdered at the hands of Israeli forces. You covered this with Colin on INN News. Colin was really upset about this. All right. Yeah. In April, Amir Rabi, a 14-year-old boy from Paterson, New Jersey, died after Zionist soldiers shot him 11 times. The justification? Times reporters conclude in a chillingly straightforward manner, the Israeli military said he'd thrown stones, labeling him as a terrorist. Apparently, his family disagreed, but still the reporters gave no hint that perhaps death by 11 bullets is not a fitting penalty for throwing stones. There's no collective punishment or, proportional response type of measurement here being held to account. Writing for Palestine Chronicle, South African journalist Iqbal Jasad asks, has slaughter of Palestinians in Gaza become normalized? Well, we remember that guy on Israeli TV saying they kill 100 people a day in Gaza and nobody cares. Judging by articles that don't question the legality of extrajudicial killings, not just in Gaza, but in all of occupied Palestine, the answer must be yes. Zionism has always relied on the support of Western powers, and that support relies on the projection of image. Western journalists buy into this ploy by repeating the regime's refusal to take responsibility for any of its crimes. Nevertheless, there are choices that extend beyond the mainstream. In A New Generation Bears Witness, Ramzi Baroud, founder of Palestine Chronicle, describes an emerging group of young journalists in Gaza whose mission is to cut through the myths propagated by Western media, the ones that haven't already been killed. Over 200 have been. For example, compare how these journalists cover this story with the ways that mainstream platforms report the news. As for the latter, there was no context, no effort to question information provided by the Zionist regime, who lies constantly and has been caught lying constantly. Although there might be a few comments from Palestinian observers, these are mentioned so briefly that they carry very little weight. Palestinian reporters, along with those sympathetic to their cause, provide context and a backstory that makes clear how this was no random act. According to Palestine Chronicle staff, the murder of Shalabi and Muslat occurred amid an escalation of settler and military violence along the central and northern West Bank. Again, not Gaza. No Hamas in the West Bank. Israel's genocide in Gaza, now in its 10th month, also provides a backdrop for this story. I would say it's much more than its 10th month, but it's now in like its 20th month, I think. Lebanese pan-Arabist source Al-Mayadeen explained further that these attacks are part of the entity's ongoing efforts to occupy more Palestinian territory. Every day they move the line a little further in, a little further in. Now they just declared an entire zone in one of the three areas that they now that the people now need to clear out of that too, and that's where their freshwater desalination plant is, and a bunch of other important stuff too. In response to this new wave of Israeli aggression in Gaza and across the West Bank, Palestinian filmmakers are proving that art imitates life, and sometimes vice versa. More importantly, these films provide another lens through which to counter Israeli Hezbollah. For instance, Watermelon Pictures offers a wide variety of films that depict, through documentary and fiction, the lives of contemporary Palestinians who resist Israeli theft of land and lives. Included on their website, Farah Nablusi's The Teacher follows a charismatic instructor, Bassem, whose son died from neglect while detained in an Israeli prison. To compensate, he takes two young men under his wing. After the oldest is shot by a settler who seems determined to burn his family's trees, Bassem takes the culprit to court, but his efforts are in vain because there's no justice for Palestinians under occupation. In this case, art foreshadows life, as Nablusi wrote the film script several years ago, only to have it released last year. Still, the only change for Palestinians is the escalation of violence that's been directed against them since the Nakba, an event funded by Western governments but ignored and or misreported by the media. Given their reluctance to report anything other than the official story, it's not enough to ask that mainstream news cover these stories from Palestine. Given their unqualified reliance on Zionist narratives, it is perhaps best that they don't, because they'll just misrepresent it, whitewash it, and water it down. On the other hand, there's an abundance of credible sources that provide context for these tragic stories. Mondoweiss, which we brought earlier, Al-Mayadeen, which we cover often, Palestine Chronicle here, the Electronic Intifada, Resistance News Network on Telegram. These platforms and more rely on narratives told through various indigenous lenses. Quote, despite the devastation in Gaza, a new understanding of the tragic realities there and throughout Palestine is emerging, Baroud writes. These lessons will endure. A key lesson is that Palestinians, like other victims of conflict and colonialism, are not inherently dependent on the West for their truths to be known and acknowledged. Again, shout out to Reef and Colin for bringing those stories to INN News. For those looking for credible narratives and backstory, it's time to break their dependence too on official news. Again, abandon corporate media and encourage your family to do so wherever possible. They are lying paid propagandists on behalf of the Zionist regime. This is yet another example of that they do so.
Yeah.
So, fuck Israel. Fuck Israel. And once again, fuck Israel. Because they're murdering, lying scumbags who are stealing land and genociding a population while denying that they're doing it the entire time. It's as disgusting and gaslighting as anything. And they're doing it in the name of religion, which is even more disgusting. YouTube certainly doesn't like us talking about stuff like that. So if you're able to, it means please support the network with a tip somewhere else other than on YouTube. The best ways to do that are at Cash App, $ Indie News Network. Cash App, it's an app on your phone. ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. Kameshwari Kate did that earlier today. You've got paypal.me/Indie News Network. You've got our website at IndieNewsNow.com. And then we've got the Substacks at INNNewsletter.com. And then at IndieMediaToday.com, which is where we are live right now. So you can actually go and watch us at IndieMediaToday.com. And by the way, subscribe to IndieMediaToday.com if you're not already doing so. All the clips from this get emailed out. I emailed out another tech tips video. We're going to show that. I'll at least show you what it looks like later on. I love you all, and I thank you for being here. Y'all are the best. Support independent media because we need it more than ever. And we'll see you soon, fam.
We'll see you in a bit.
Buddy. Mwah. Ciao, baby.
Bye, Felicia.
No! We just fucking lost the stream!
Can keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen to 50,000 dead? And now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison.
Who are these people?
Now it's time for Raging About Israel. Everybody ready? Everybody ready? Because there's a lot to say fuck Israel about this week. Oh boy. Okay. Let's... what happened over here? Hey, you're not supposed to see that.
I don't know.
Whoa. Okay.
You broke it.
I sure did. Anti-war news. Dave DeCamp, Indie Media Award honoree, inaugural class, publishes the other day, Israeli Knesset passes non-binding resolution calling for the annexation of the West Bank. This was the big game. This was why they backed Trump specifically, was that he basically said that he would allow them without pushback to annex the West Bank. And now it's happening. The motion passed in a vote of 71-13.
There's no Hamas in the West Bank, so how... But what about the hostage?
Yeah. The Israeli Knesset on Wednesday passed a non-binding resolution that calls for the annexation of the occupied West Bank, a symbolic show of support for the total takeover of the Palestinian territory. The motion passed 71-13, with two opposition parties in the 120-seat Knesset boycotting the vote. The resolution received the support of all 60 lawmakers who are part of the current government, what a surprise, as well as members of the United Torah Judaism, Noam, and Yisrael Beitenu parties. I don't even know who these parties are. The resolution states that the declaration would make it clear to the world that Israel will not accept solutions that involve dangerous territorial concessions, and that it is committed to its future as a secure Nazi Jewish state. You mean, yeah, that's not cool.
State, yeah.
You know, a religious dictatorship where they have supremacy over everybody else. Yeah, no. It says that Judea and Samaria, fuck you for even using the biblical terms, the biblical name for the West Bank, fuck you in your Bible. is an inseparable part of the historical homeland of the Jewish people. So then why the fuck have you continued to give it up all these years and allow people, again, it's where that's where you've been squeezing people. So now the last vestiges of where you've allowed them to survive and exist, now you're mad that they live there too. Fuck off. Following the vote, Knesset Speaker Amir Ohana, a member of Prime Minister Benjamin Fuck Off Netanyahu's Likud war criminal party,
Ohana,
okay, claimed that Jews cannot be considered occupiers of the Palestinian territory. Jews are everywhere, asshole. The European settlers that live there are certainly occupiers of the Palestinian territory, you fucking lying douchebag. This is our land. This is our land. This is our home. Prove it, fucko. The land of Israel belongs to the people of Israel, of which you are not one because you are a Khazarian European. In 1967, the occupation did not begin.
Do we see DNA evidence? Show me DNA evidence.
Dude,
no.
I mean, it's beyond infuriating. In 1967, the occupation didn't begin. They're saying it ended and our homeland was returned to its rightful owners. How about no? We are the original first natives of this piece of land. Jews cannot be the occupier of a land that for 3,000 years has been called Judea, except it wasn't. It was called fucking Palestine.
Bastard.
It was called Palestine. Look at fucking Raiders of the Lost Ark. Look at every map and encyclopedia for 100 fucking years before World War II, asshole. Mm-hmm. It wasn't called Judea. While the resolution is symbolic, it comes as the Israeli government has been working to advance settlements in the West Bank, and as Jewish settlers have been increasing violent attacks against Palestinians with the goal of driving them from their land. The current Israeli government has prioritized the expansion of settlements since it came into power at the end of December 2022. Right about the time that it started ramping up killings of Palestinians, and then looked the other way on October 7th as the most watched wall in the history of watched walls, just somehow ended up not watched at all. Amazing how that just happened, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't have been a Hannibal directive or anything afterwards. Okay. Earlier this month, all the Likud ministers in the government urged the war criminal Netanyahu to annex the territory, citing support from the Trump administration. Like we said, it was Miriam Adelson that bought off the Trump administration and the Trump campaign for the right to be able to do this. Quote, the strategic partnership backing and support of the U.S. President Donald Trump have made it a propitious time to move forward with it now. Propitious, yeah. And ensure that Israel's security for generations. I don't think so. You take that and every other Arab nation starts attacking. Or so we expect. So far, it has not happened. And going after Syria was a good part of that. Right now, there would only basically be a response from Iran. Because there's no more Iraq left. There's no more Syria left. There's a Saudi Arabia that's heavily U.S. aligned. There's a UAE that's heavily U.S. aligned. There's a Qatar that's heavily U.S. aligned. Right? You think about the region. There's Turkey that's heavily NATO aligned. And all of a sudden, it's like Russia isn't going to do it either, especially on behalf of an Arab nation.
No. China's not there either.
Like, they've already signed a thing that stated that even if Iran gets attacked, that they're not necessarily required to step in and defend Iran like an Article 5 NATO treaty is. Correct. Like, that was 2 months ago they signed that. But we got a long way to go.
Yep.
Shout out to 2024 Indie Media Honoree Decentered News, one of the best outlets out there. Go follow them. Over on Twitter, over on Substack, over on decensored.news also. As they continue to starve and exterminate the Palestinians in Gaza, Israel is concentrating the remaining population into even smaller camps. Concentrating into camps. I think I heard that somewhere before.
Yeah,
Well,
where have we heard that before?
More than 86% of Gaza is under displacement orders and militarized zones, says the International Organization for Migration. That's a division of the UN. No place is safe, they write. This is their animation. Watch this shit. Watch this shit right here. This is just from March 18th.
Displacement orders in Gaza.
This is from March 18th through July 16th. And look at the numbers of displaced people go up. It's already over 6 figures. This is by the end of March. All these red zones are cleansed ethnically.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here we go. This is just the beginning. It's going to get, well, that was the big one when they moved the line in.
That was the big one.
Now you got 725,000 displaced on July 16th. That's where the line was at the end. Right there. Okay? Everyone that was in that big area now just can live in these gray areas. Maybe. And then they're shot at when they're walking for food and water.
I mean, this feels like old info, too, because there's now, like, that line's gotten even smaller recently.
Well, that was 11 days ago. Yes, they continue to concentrate
it. I mean, you're also talking about, like, where can you grow food here?
Nowhere.
Right? And it's, like, not in those gray areas. Like, you know, so, and they barely could grow food already in the areas they were at. So, you know, this is what a genocide looks like: starvation and siege warfare.
And they're not
on an entire population.
And of course, they're not allowed to fish, right? There was an order put that they're not allowed to fish. Thank you, Seven Signs Soul over on Substack for mentioning that. Where is Dan Cohen on Capture News? Dan Cohen is an Indie Media Award honoree for sure. Same shit they did in Haiti. I sort of. Yeah, there's plenty of Dan's. Dan's been covering this too. But I got a bunch of other stuff tonight. Mondo Weiss and other Indie Media Award honorees as well. Dan's on the list. He's up there. So this is where they've literally allowed all the people that are left to live, and then they're going to clear them out of there too. And then basically the whole thing will end up red. And that's when they bring the fences in and they hide this area from everybody. And that's where they bring in all the construction trucks and they start rebuilding on top of the bones. And that's when the Gaza reconstruction plan goes. Yes, they had food before these fuckers came. They had olive groves, which were burned to the ground by Israel. You're absolutely right, Vicky. They ain't getting water or unbombed land to farm. Absolutely right, Fred.
And keep in mind how much land before October 7th has been fucking taken. Like, you know, since the Nakba.
Most of it. Right. Descent in Bloom, quote, the aid sites are all areas they've been told to go, then they shoot at them when they go. And I think we've covered that a couple times already on the show. All right.
Yep.
Mondo Weiss. So this is another one. I wanted to talk about the New York Times, and we hate the New York Times here, obviously, but I don't think that people quite realize just the level of Zionist trash that the New York Times is. And the reason why they are so biased. Mondo Weiss did an incredible deep dive recently into the leadership of the New York Times. Pointing out
New York Times? Oh, sorry.
Well, that's what Christina P. used to call them a long time ago, by the way. The New York Times has helped to enable and sustain Israel's ongoing genocide, or at least whitewash it in the public press. A new dossier reveals the close ties of 20 top editors, executives, and journalists at the Times who've covered Gaza and their connection to Israel and Zionism, and whitewashed it the entire time. All right? Sons serving in the IOF, ties to Zionist lobbying groups or
Yeah.
think tanks, living in a stolen house or has lived in a stolen house in Israel themselves, or 3 of them who actually served in the IOF themselves. We are putting the New York Times on notice. Since the Zionist genocide in Gaza began over 20 months ago, the paper of record has run cover for Israel's war crimes. We've witnessed the Zionist entity drop 2,000-pound bombs on displaced Palestinians forced to survive in tents, massacre starving Palestinians at aid sites, arrest and torture Palestinians accused of fighting back or administering care, destroy Gaza's entire healthcare system, obliterate almost every one of its schools and universities, damage over 90% of its residential buildings, and block food and supplies from entering the besieged strip, despite what the fuck they decide to claim on wherever yesterday. But the New York Times journalists have chosen to ignore, whitewash, distort, or justify each one of these crimes, which we've brought a lot of here. As much as any weapons manufacturer, the New York Times is a part of the machinery of war, producing, in the realm of public opinion, the impunity that enables and sustains Israel's ongoing genocide. When we first occupied the lobby of the New York Times in November of 2023, we called out the Times' refusal to historicize the Al-Aqsa flood within the context of Israel's over 7-decade-long occupation of Palestine and its choice to frame the Israeli military's bombardment of Gaza as a targeted war against Hamas. We demanded that the Times tell the truth. We printed our own paper, The New York War Crimes, which contained the names of Palestinian martyrs recorded at the time. It took us over an hour just to read the names of martyrs under the age of 1. We called on our audiences to boycott the Times, to divest their time, trust, and attention from the paper, and to unsubscribe from its quote-unquote news, games, and recipes. That includes Wordle. Fuck Wordle.
Mm-hmm.
We are not the
and
first.
The wire cutter.
Yep. We are not the first to point out the New York Times' commitment to Zionism. The dossier we released this month was built on the investigative work of outlets and organizations including the Electronic Intifada, Mondo Weiss, The Intercept, Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, and Palestinian writers who've exposed this fraudulence of the paper of record for decades. Since October 7, 2023, such critiques have accrued both new audiences and new urgency. Data tracking word choices across the newsroom, as well as leaks of the Times' editorial directives, evince anti-Palestinian bias. Times headline corrections have been a favorite discursive tool of the Palestine solidarity movement. Alan McLeod and Asal Rod fixed headlines almost daily to reveal the revisionism, to set the record straight, to tell the truth. Our dossier adds to this body of knowledge. It exposes 20 high-ranking editors, executives, and journalists who cover the war on Gaza and have ties to the Zionist state, further undermining the Times' unearned prestige. Natan Odenheimer served in the Maglan Special Forces Commando Unit of the Israeli occupation forces. Now that he's a Jerusalem correspondent for the Times, he writes about and embeds with his former brothers in arms. Murderers in arms. How can we ever expect someone to report on the occupation correctly when he wore the occupier's uniform for 4 years? Isabel Kirshner is the mother of 2 former IOF soldiers and the wife of another. After his tour, Kirshner's husband went on to direct an Israeli think tank's program on information strategy, a department tasked with shaping a positive image of Israel in the media. You mean brainwashing and propaganda. We don't have to ask how this...
Daniela Weiss would want him to do.
We don't ask how this relationship...
You have to brainwash people.
Yes, she belongs in prison.
Fucking worse than that.
All right. We don't have to ask how this relationship shapes her coverage. Kirshner has cited her husband's think tank over 100 times since she started writing for the Times in 2007. Our dossier, which lays bare the material connections and historical allegiances of editors, executives, and influential writers to Zionism, clearly demonstrates that the Times is compromised. The entire institution is systematically organized to protect Israel from international accountability. It's interesting that Barry Weiss left there because it seems tailor-made for her now. So maybe she left because she accomplished...
That's the Assad toady, right?
Right. Maybe she left because she accomplished her goal of leaving it for that level of Zionism and starting her own independent, quote-unquote, Zionist-funded outlet that's VC-funded and housed on Substack called the Free Press, which is fucking hilarious and the biggest troll ever. While they lie about beheaded babies and rapes on October 7th. Still. The Times support...
Free Palestine.
You better. The Times support of Zionism and the settler states' colonial mission across the region is deeply embedded in the paper's history. A.M. Rosenthal, head of the Times newsroom for nearly 2 decades, was praised at his funeral for showing that it was possible to love Israel every bit as much as to love our own country. You mean to be a traitor to your own country? Max Frankel, executive editor of the Times for over 10 years, admitted that he wrote from a pro-Israel perspective and said he was expected to stand up for Israel, whether they're right or wrong. Fuck Israel.
So how is that? Okay.
That's cheerleading. That's not journalism.
What?
The Times has condemned our research as a vile campaign in the press, but refuses to accept that Israel's killing of over 200 Palestinian journalists has been targeted. We regret ever calling the martyr Hossam Shabbat the colleague of elite journalists who write their propaganda from stolen homes in occupied Jerusalem.
Jesus Christ.
Those who serve in the IOF, who get paid by the Israel lobby to spew Hasbara, are not the colleagues of Palestine's bravest. They are their enemies. The paper's response to our dossier deploys the same tortured logic present in its coverage. How can our research be both public knowledge and inaccurate? We know why the Times has been silent on the killing of media workers. Palestinian journalists expose the same truth the paper seeks to obscure. They're constantly charged with being biased and unable to report objectively because they're Palestinian. Their identity is the ultimate accusation. But in the Times, fairness evades the Palestinians, and their struggle to live free is unrighteous, unjust, and worthy of condemnation, while Israel can do whatever they want to do to stop them from that struggle.
They're freedom fighters. The
New York Times doesn't recognize Palestine. An editor of the Times once told the Palestinian intellectual Ibrahim Abu Lughod. Abu Lughod responded, well, Palestine doesn't recognize the New York Times either. His refusal to acknowledge the Times 37 years ago is an invitation to undercut its prestige. Everyone should heed his call and boycott, divest, and unsubscribe from the paper of record. And I don't know too many people here who do. If you do, cancel that shit. To imagine a free Palestine within our lifetimes, it helps to imagine a world without the New York fucking Times. Fuck the New York Times. And fuck Israel. So, here's more proof that what's been happening has been happening. Gaza Humanitarian Foundation whistleblower exposes aid massacres, and this was out of The Dissident. Okay? The Dissident is an INN co-founder, actually. He pulled this out of a couple places like Middle East Eye. Israel's GHF, okay, which had set up 4 fake aid distribution sites in Gaza, guarded by U.S. mercenary security firms Safe Reach Solutions and UG Solutions, has been used as a quote-unquote death trap for Palestinians starved by the Israeli blockade. We've talked about this before. Okay, more than 1,000 Palestinians killed by Israeli forces while trying to access food and water. Now, an American military contractor who was guarding an aid site has come forward to Israel's Channel 12 and blown the whistle on Israel's use of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation for massacres. Huh. I thought they were denying that. And that was on Israel TV. He stated in the interview, quote, "I'm a career veteran in the United States Army who's been deployed to combat 12 times in 4 different wars. I have never in my entire military career been a part of, allowed, or bystander to the use of force against unarmed innocent civilians, and I'm not going to do it now. Too late." Referring to the GHF, he said, "There's no fixing this. This needs to be put an end. There needs to be an end to it. There needs to be an end put to it." The UN was already distributing food beforehand, easily and well, and Israel stopped that because they were distributing food easily and well. They wanted to starve the Palestinian people, and that's what's happening. So this whistleblower recounted a story of a GHF guard spraying an entire bottle of pepper spray into an unarmed Palestinian civilian's face when he was desperately picking up food, saying there was a man who was on the ground, he was on his hands and knees, and he was picking up noodles. The UG security personnel wanted to get the Palestinians off the site, so they started yelling, "Hey, let's go, let's leave." The guy wasn't armed, he wasn't a threat. So this UG contractor sprayed an entire can of pepper spray into the guy's face. That's lethal. He also recounted a UG contractor killing a Palestinian woman with a stun grenade, saying, "I was standing next to these 2 women, and this contractor threw this stun grenade, and it landed between me and them. This thing hit us, and she just dropped, just lifeless, collapsed to the ground, and it looked like she'd been killed." He also told the outlet that the sites were deliberately set up in areas that force Palestinians into dangerous areas of Gaza in order to reach them. Why would they do that? He said, quote, "The IDF engineers built the sites and decided where they would be. In reality, the sites put the population at great disadvantage and in great danger. The sites were not set up in locations, nor were they set up in a way that was conducive to delivering and distributing humanitarian aid to a needy population." That, to me, is the biggest indictment of all. Like, that's what they were supposed to be doing there. The Palestinians couldn't have vehicles. They couldn't have cars. They were on foot. Most of them don't even have fucking shoes. There's no water going through active war zone areas because they wanted them to be killed. He also said that U.S. mercenaries have been shooting at Palestinians once they reach the aid sites, which we've also been reporting on, claiming, and he said here, quote, "As the Palestinians were finishing getting the aid that was on the site, the UG Solutions personnel began shooting in their direction, shooting at them, shooting at their feet, trying to get them to leave. Like you see in the movies, like in the old Wild West. Ha, get out of here. Pew, pew, pew. Like it's a big fucking game. They're having a good old time." He finished the interview saying, quote, "If the UN method had the amount of support and security and coordination that GHF is getting, then the UN process would be very successful." And he links to the video here. Really important that this is documented, and documented on Israeli fucking TV. I'm not playing it because I don't want to get taken down from the copyright. But we've got more.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people like to bring Carrie Wedler.
Wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more fuckery. Carrie Wedler, Pleasure to Burn. I love her stuff. And people like her videos. She's clever and she's hilarious. But she also writes really good stuff. And a lot of people wouldn't bring this one, but I wanted to specifically because I knew a lot of people wouldn't. But it's really good. She says this is that Palantir-linked executives are helping to launch a new propaganda film venture, framing it as an all-American counter to Hollywood, but so far it's nothing more than imperial agitprop. And it's also laundering genocide in Gaza. You know, Hollywood has had quite a bit of pushback, but now she's reporting on this, and this was the other day on the 24th on Thursday, Palantir-linked tech executives are reportedly helping raise funds for a film production company that intends to make pro-U.S. government movies. According to a new article from Semaphore this week, Founders Films, and remember who owns the Founders Fund? A guy named Pete, a Dallas-based production company, is entering the culture war to fight for American nationalism and exceptionalism. The new company is backed by founding Palantir Chief Technology Officer Shyam Sankar, who recently joined the Army as a lieutenant colonel with several other big tech executives. This new Detachment 201 was reportedly
crazy.
Bonkers was reportedly Sankar's idea. So now
insane.
The tech bros got lieutenant colonel fucking commissions.
They just gave him some stripes, dude. Here you go. Here's your stripes.
Other backers.
What a fucking shit show we're in.
Other backers include a former head of business development for Palantir, Ryan Podolsky, an investor, Christian Garrett. Garrett's firm is invested in government contractor companies like SpaceX, Palantir, and Anduril. Anduril is currently working on AI drone warfare for the military and was just granted an effective monopoly via the big, beautiful bill on supplying the autonomous surveillance towers to U.S. Customs and Border Protection. That's not good. These three men are reportedly raising money for the new film endeavor. For context, Palantir, again, is a politically entrenched software, AI, and data analysis corporation that was partially funded early on by In-Q-Tel, which is the CIA's investment wing. They were implicated in Snowden's 2013 releases and have contracts with numerous U.S. government agencies, including the Pentagon, CDC, ICE, and the IRS by way of the Department of Government Efficiency. How convenient. They recently came under extensive scrutiny from the fuck you New York Times, okay? And they reported that they were helping Trump compile a centralized database on Americans, which the company vehemently denied as they were doing it. Palantir co-founder Peter Thiel and his associates have extensive ties to the current administration. However, they also have ties to the CIA and In-Q-Tel. However, as with many nefarious political arrangements, Palantir's government profiteering is not limited to Republican administrations. Further, Palantir provides services to governments outside the U.S., remember, and recently brought the AI-driven Project Maven, which it built for the Pentagon, to NATO. So they're expanding their footprint.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure also directly involved with like Where's Daddy and Lavender
AI,
over there in Israel. So
a guerrilla war against the status quo, right? According to an in-depth article, Sankar posted on his Substack late last year, that the Palantir CTO believes there must be a heroic challenge to the status quo that dominates Hollywood films. Why? This aligns with the recent Founders Films pitch deck obtained by Semaphore. In it, the new company decries the current state of affairs. Quote, "The American brand is broken. Hollywood is AWOL. Movies have become more ideological, more cautious, and less entertaining. Large segments of American and international viewers are underserved. Production costs have soared and sales are flagging." This just screams to me. This is like the liberals have taken over Hollywood. So we're going to make our own conservative, pro-American version, right?
We're going to make Hollywood great again.
But you can be sure that they're also going to try to make Israel great again. Further in his 2024 article, Sankar accurately points out that films are a form of soft power, highlighting that governments have an interest in exporting their cultures to craft a positive image around the world. Yes, they also do predictive programming, and they embed with the military and intelligence. And they bleed out stories in advance to, again, predict, to let people kind of understand of what's about to happen and go, hey, I saw a movie about this. And that way they're much more willing to accept it when it does happen. He frames the communist Chinese regime as an arch nemesis of the United States, opining that America is in the middle of Cold War II against a communist enemy with more people, more money, and more military might than the Soviets ever had. Well, that's correct, but nothing else in that statement is. He predictably treats this...
I only liked Hollywood when it made movies like Sound of the South. That's what I bring back my movies. I guarantee you that's what we're... Like, what wasn't the other... Was it Goebbels or whatever that was like, we got to do Nazi videos, Nazi movies?
Goebbels was the...
Right, did a whole thing on that. Which one was that?
I think that was Goebbels.
Yeah.
Of course, in his version of reality,
something like that.
America is the good guy standing against oppressors and evildoers who seek to subjugate the world. This is Rich coming from the CTO of a company. Yeah, but this is literally coming from the CTO of a company helping multiple government agencies surveil the public more efficiently. On one hand, Sankar correctly identifies governments' efforts to exert soft power to influence the world in their favor. The Chinese government does exert immense influence over Hollywood studios, whose leaders are willing to bend the knee to the Chinese government in exchange for access to Chinese audiences. The NBA did the same thing, by the way. However, the Palantir CTO's apparent answer to this, Founders Films, embodies pervasive and outdated ideologies and ways of thinking. He espouses a false dichotomy that paints the U.S. as the world's moral authority. Accordingly, Founders Films wants to make films that promote American exceptionalism. Good luck. You mean American lies? In reality, the Chinese government is undeniably, the Chinese government is undeniably oppressive and corrupt, but the U.S. government is not its freedom-loving counterpart. Rather than seeking to produce thought-provoking films that explore true freedom and sincere skepticism of government and authority, Founders Films appears on track to produce traditional right-wing flavored pro-government propaganda. According to Semaphore, the production slate includes films about the 9/11 terror attacks. I hope it blames Israel, but it won't.
Terror.
Okay. The Trump administration's 2020 assassination of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani. As a good thing?
Soleimani, oh God.
The botched U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan under Joe Biden. Democrats can't do anything right. You mean under the timetable that Trump had set arbitrarily?
Yeah.
The Chinese spy operation.
Weather Balloon, the movie.
Right. Seeking to upend America's position as the dominant global power. Bro, this is comical.
It's fucking awful.
And then whitewashing and bragging about the recent U.S.-Israeli airstrikes that claimed to take out the Iranian regime's nuclear program, but didn't, of course.
Starring Jerry Seinfeld in his new role.
To complete the pro-government propaganda, the studio also plans to make a new version of Atlas Shrugged. Of course they're going to repackage Ayn Rand.
Of course. We got to fucking Ayn Rand it up. We got to.
This choice rounds out the current right-wing narrative, the age-old elevation of American exceptionalism, militarism, and government authority under the cover of libertarian, anti-government, anti-authoritarian values. In reality, military industrialism and empire are anything but libertarian. So she says...
One of these fucking days, libertarians will figure it the fuck out, too, but till then,
ignorance is strength. Well, now we're getting into inksock language. Okay. The new venture's focus on American militarism and exceptionalism perfectly highlights the false dichotomy Sankar paints as Cold War II. As evil, quote unquote, as the Chinese regime may be, and I disagree with Carrie on how evil they are, the U.S. military is no stranger to abuses and atrocities. For one, American militarism and exceptionalism have led to decades of wars that are often based on lies. As Julian Assange famously said, these wars have contributed to a massive national debt on the backs of regular Americans, not to mention the immense toll on soldiers fighting these endless wars, not to mention the opportunity cost of things we could have been doing with that money and time instead. Nobody ever talks about what's been sacrificed that way. The advances in technology that weren't for military gain. More explicitly, U.S. troops and those who command them have committed grave inhumanities. A sampling of morally egregious acts includes the My Lai massacre in Vietnam, torture in Afghanistan, ongoing ongoing airstrikes that have killed countless civilians, Obama's drone program, the use of depleted uranium. And turning a blind eye to child sex abuse in Afghanistan and everywhere else for that matter. It appears
still irradiated, by the way.
It appears the success of the new film company rests on the mental gymnastics Orwell once described. The nationalist not only does not disapprove of atrocities committed by his own side, but he has a remarkable capacity for not even hearing about them. Sounds like Israel. Despite Sankar's stated desire to challenge the status quo, his vision and that of Founders films are aligned with the establishment. Indeed, Sankar refers to Top Gun as an American ideal film. You mean the gay anthem? Oh my God.
Oh my God.
As it happens, Top Gun is one of countless movies directly influenced by the U.S. government. The Pentagon enjoyed say over the film's script. The Pentagon enjoyed say over the film's script in exchange for consulting and providing equipment to make the movie more realistic. The 2022 sequel.
Pentagon.
Yeah, those guys. Almost certainly had the same military influence, the sequel. Okay. The original 1986 film also reflects the power of cinema in shaping people's opinions and perceptions. It provided a small but significant boost to naval recruitments. And I know people that definitely joined the military because of Top Gun. Right? So she says the longstanding relationship between Hollywood and the U.S. government, which encompasses not just the Pentagon, but agencies like CIA and the FBI, has produced inarguably pro-government films. All of them are pro-government. They're not allowed to be... Look at Transformers. Jesus Christ. The film products of this relationship...
All of them. What do you mean? Everything that uses any military fucking equipment ever is fucking propaganda shit. So... Which the other half of Hollywood is just propaganda. So, one of the two.
Yeah, pretty much. The film products of this relationship reinforce the same image of the American government that the Palantir Link production company seeks to boost. Unsurprisingly, right-wing culture warriors rarely decry this flavor of Hollywood propaganda. It's unclear whether Founders films will seek a similar relationship with government agencies, but it wouldn't be surprising. Actually, it would be the most obvious thing that I can imagine. All right. And of course, outcomes are greater than intentions. Far from being a true challenge to oppressive ideological influence, Founders Films is on track to reinforce the same pro-government narratives, culture wars, false left-right dichotomy, and polarization that have long plagued media, politics, and society at large. While Sankar may be correct that Hollywood has rolled over for the communist Chinese regime and that the film industry needs fresh content because they do keep recycling sequels and prequels and offshoot stories and
it's just fucking capitalism.
Right. Regurgitating
it's
establishment
always that ruins things.
Regurgitating establishment propaganda tropes from decades past is hardly an effective solution. Perhaps the Palantir executive-backed film company is knowingly perpetuating harmful, subservient ideologies as an intentional push to subjugate people's minds. Maybe. Or perhaps the new project is merely a reflection of their own sincere, albeit propagandized beliefs. It may be a bit of both. It's not. Either way, their true intentions matter less than the end result, conditioning people to revere their jingoistic overlords as liberators and encourage affection and reverence for good authoritarians. Again, Carrie, I disagree with you on the Chinese communist stuff and how they're evil and authoritarian and they're the big bad guy that we have to worry about in the future. They're already the world dominant global power, and they're going to be for the rest of our lives. Like it, don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck. There are too many of them that we can't stop them. Now, one other thing I wanted to mention, another indie media award honoree, Andy Worthington, mentioned something last night, and I'm not 100% sure what's happened today with it, but there was talk of the resumption of aid deliveries in Gaza after 146 days of no trucks getting through, despite what Israel claims. He said it appears that the outrage caused by the horrific images of deliberately starved children in Gaza, and all you have to do is look all over Twitter or Substack to see pictures of emaciated children and adults, like literally skin and bones, looking like Nazi Germany. Those images have finally stirred sufficient international pressure to compel Israel to, at least temporarily, clear its eyes of the red mist that's been in place relentlessly for 22 months almost, and especially since March 1st, when Netanyahu's wretched genocidal regime imposed its latest barbaric siege on all food, water, medicine, and fuel supplies into Gaza. Again, you can lie about that and say that they're not. March 1st was the last time any aid got in. Except for death shrouds. Remember, they allowed 7 trucks full of death shrouds in. I remember you reported on that. On Twitter, recovering Zionist Shael Ben Ephraim says that, quote, immense international pressure has led Israel to abandon its policy of using GHF death traps, and that, according to reports within Israel, there will be a, quote, humanitarian pause of military operations tomorrow, as well as a, quote, resumption of military escorts to UN and other aid organization convoys, and the, quote, creation of humanitarian corridors. This is all good news if it's actually happening. He says a reliable IDF source told him that, quote, everything we have done in the last few months has failed. The government has finally realized that. The pictures broadcast around the world have weakened our hand and strengthened Hamas. Also on Twitter, the Palestinian-American poet Mossab Abu Toha also noted that the promised resumption of aid in Gaza tomorrow, including the, quote, safe movement of UN convoys delivering food and medicine, unquote, and, quote, reconnecting a power line to Gaza desalination plant, boosting daily water output to 20,000 cubic meters, also would be an incredible thing. I want to see it happen. What happened, he asks? Some countries applied pressure on Israel, which means these same countries could stop the genocide. And as Ben Ephraim described it, quote, the attempt to deprive Gazans of food, water, and medical treatment was an intentional policy, and it backfired miserably. And this is one of those UN World Food Program aid trucks that have been denied access for months. And here is one of the tweets, and you can see this was last night when they started moving from Egypt, but I don't know what happened when they got to the Rafah gate. Was there an entire large contingent of Israelis there to block the trucks from going through? I don't know. I saw some stuff about it, but I have not seen the latest about what happened with those trucks. But
I mean, Egyptian military escort? Anything?
Well,
no. Okay.
They're not doing that.
I mean, I get it.
I also, so fuck Israel, man. For all of this.
Yeah.
All right. And so that was our long drawn out fuck Israel segment. Please support the media you want to see. We certainly don't get monetized by YouTube for this. Our channel, INN, is not monetized. My other channel, youtube.com/@indie@INN, is monetized. You could leave a super chat there, but please don't. Do it at one of these other places if you can. Cash App, $, Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network. IndieNewsNow.com is our website that has a Keep the Media Free section where you can do that. And then at the Substacks at INNnewsletter.com and at IndieMediaToday.com, where we are, again, live right now. Support independent media because we need it more than ever. I'll see you next week. I love you all. And have a good one, everyone.
See you in a bit, fam.
Ciao, baby.
We are out of here.
No! We just fucking lost the stream.
I guess this isn't such an awful place.